Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's webinar. Our hope with the Property for Good group on Facebook is that it can become a place where you can make contacts and share ideas with everything to do with the supported living sector. And we know that within the group there are people that are actually within the sector, that maybe work in the charities. There are some professional partners in there, so architects and solicitors and funders, but also property people and investors as well. So it's a really good blend of people, and we're thrilled that we're just shy of 300 people now, and it's a good blend of individuals, and we hope you can build your contacts through the group. And part of what we're running are obviously these webinars, which we're going to be doing now every second and fourth Friday of the month. We've decided that's sort of a nice, easy, regular timescale to proceed with, and it also is nice and straightforward from your own point of view in terms of thinking, you know, do I want to attend these webinars? Well, it's nice and easy to remember that they're the second and the fourth Friday of the month. Today, I'm very thrilled to have Mark Stokes on as our guest. And we'll have a chat with him shortly. Firstly, let me just show you quickly what we're going to cover today. So I'd like to just have a very quick update about what we're up to in Cornerstone Place. It's been a very busy couple of weeks. I just want to share some insight around that. Then we'll run a poll just to understand who is on the presentation today. And then we'll spend the lion's share of the time chatting with Mark, a bit of a Q&A, and then we'll talk about the next events and the next guests that we've got lined up in a couple of weeks' time. Throughout the presentation today, if you have any questions, if you could use the Q&A feature within Zoom, please. That enables us to sort of capture them easier, and we can get to them as we start chatting to Mark. So just a quick update about Cornerstone Place. I can see some of the people that are on the call today were also here a couple of weeks ago. But for those that don't know, Cornerstone Place is an organisation that I founded alongside Richard Kennedy. It's a certified social enterprise, and our goal is to help end homelessness, street homelessness in the UK within 10 years. And the way we're going to do that is by supporting homelessness charities, but through the provision of fit-for-purpose property, but also we help them to build their balance sheet and we help them to build their unrestricted income. So we've been told it's a unique model. We've had lots of teething problems and challenges, but we're really getting there now, and we're starting to make some really decent progress. Just a few updates. So we've got been a very busy couple of weeks. The drawings on the left are a project that we're working on in Oxfordshire, which was in conjunction with Homeless Oxfordshire, and Claire was on the last presentation that we did. So we've got a bit of a burning platform with this one from a planning perspective, because the permitted development route that we're working towards is coming to an end. So we're having to work backwards from those dates and try and get everything moving forward. So we want to get our planning application in next week. So we've been busy organising environmental surveys, transport surveys, getting some sworn statements from the owner, and also starting to put together a scheme. So you know, that's always quite a fun bit, isn't it, when you're actually you start to think, well, where are the doors going to go? Where are the stairs going to go? And this morning on our weekly Zoom board meeting call that we had, there was a lot of discussion around how we're going to lay things out. So, but that's exciting. We're making some good progress on that. The new build picture in the middle, well, we've finally got an agreement with quite a large national charity to help them identify sites in Greater Manchester where we can build new build apartments, anything between 10 and 25 apartments. And so we're absolutely thrilled to be working on that project. And in fact, if there's anybody on the call who might be able to help us locate sites, please do get in touch, because you know we need to get as many things in the top of the funnel, and then we can run our analysis and then present it to the charity. So we can build in sourcing fees, of course, as part of the process. So if you're able to help, please do get in touch. And then finally, in the bottom right-hand corner there, we've had an offer accepted on a building in Tameside. This is with a different charity. The chief exec of that charity is all guns blazing and pushing for us to get all of the paperwork put together. We've been told we should get our our funding in principle agreed over the next couple of days. So, and that could be quite a quick one for us. That's a 12-bed HMO, doesn't need an awful lot of work, and it's been sat still for many years. So hopefully we can get some roofs over people's heads pretty quickly with that one. So yeah, that's been a very busy couple of weeks, and there's an awful lot of irons in other fires as well. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but for us it seems like the floodgates have opened in terms of activity, and it's been quite tricky to prioritize things so that we can have the maximum impact that we can. So then let's just run this poll. So hopefully you can see that. So how involved are you in the supported living sector currently? And it's a multiple choice. So maybe you could just spend a few seconds just having a look at that. Okay, let's just end the poll and share the results. Okay, so most people on the call actually work in the sector, which is great. And you can see there's some interest in that. Some people are sort of active and just getting reading on it. So yeah, it's an interesting spread. I think we had more sort of investors when we ran this same poll a couple of weeks ago, but it's great to have a broad variety, and I think that's reflective of the Property for Good group anyway, so as it stands at the moment. Okay. Right, now on to the main section of the event today. Like I said, I'm very pleased that Mark's joining us. I'm not quite sure how he fits everything in the 24 hours that we all have, but you know, Mark's a director of EquaGroup, which is a well-established property developer, and that's grown over the last 5 years. I'm sure Mark can explain a little bit about that background and what it's led to for him. He's also the founder of SaaS Alliance, which is the largest group of SaaS trustees in the UK. And for those who don't know, you know, the SaaS is a type of personal pension. Again, Mark can dig into it in a bit more detail. And what's been interesting is we found out there's quite a lot of interest in funding activities within this sector from SaaS trustees. So that's definitely something we want to talk about shortly. Also, alongside his business partner, Nigel Green, we were thrilled that Mark and Nigel became directors and shareholders of Cornerstone Place at the end of last year. And it's really had an impact on our organisation for all the reasons you might expect around mentorship. So, you know, there's definitely accountability, and there's more structure in what we're doing. And the guys have just made our horizon rise in terms of where we should be going and what we should be aiming for. So it's been great. And, you know, I'm going to sort of say for the record, if you like, that I'm not sure I've come away from a conversation with Mark where I've not come away thinking, that was a good idea. Well, that was another good idea. So it's been great. I've mentioned the mentorship, but he's also a best-selling author, and you can see those 4 books that he's written on the bottom. So great, Mark, welcome.
Thank you very much, and I'm humbled and flattered by the introduction. Thank you, David.
But for those that don't know you, Mark, maybe you could just give us a little bit of background about who you are and you know what you've been doing, and then a little bit about what you're doing currently, please.
Yeah, sure. So I'm 50. First and foremost, I'm a proud dad of 4 lovely kids. I live in between Guildford and Farnham in Surrey. So I've spent 25 years working in 4 continents, 33 countries around the world, and my responsibility was running organisations that ran large infrastructure programs. That would be highly resilient infrastructure. Think data centres, think power stations, think fibre optic networks on a pan-Asia Pacific and pan-European basis. So my background, way back when, I did my degree in construction. So I've always been involved in construction, infrastructure, real estate and business. Got to 2015. I was on the board of 7 different organizations at the time, running 7 different companies, and that takes its toll. And I really wasn't spending the time I wanted or should be doing with my family, the ones I loved. So I voted with my feet, left corporate life. Took me 9 months to leave as a good leaver. So you've mentioned a few of them, but there are a number of principal areas that I focus on now. My first love isn't necessarily property. My first love is business. I happen to have property interests in many of our businesses. So I'm in business, and property is fundamentally an underlying hard asset class that forms part of that. Every business that we have has an underlying ethos of it must create shared value. I've worked in the construction industries around the world, and I've seen, to a greater extent, that if I want more profit, you're going to make less profit. And I decided very early in my career there has to be a better way. And that creating shared value really does sum up how we can all win. There is a win-win-win as long as you take the time and listen and pay attention to the needs of others. So all of our businesses create shared value, and they're needs-based businesses as well.
Okay, I mean, that shared value piece is certainly something that I think resonates with this sector as well, isn't it? Do you see any sort of similarities in terms of what you do in the private sector with what you've seen, since you've been exposed into this third sector, working within Cornerstone Place?
Yeah, I see a lot of common attributes, to be honest. I mean, I'm a developer as well. We run large developments, 5 to 20 million GDV, and I've raised probably 22 million pounds of private capital in the last 3.5 years. So I've seen the traits of running businesses, running property. And I personally, I think we'll be waiting a long time if government is left to solve problems. And I have a lot of respect for government and the people who work within it. But what I've seen time and time again, it's the tenacity, business acumen, drive that from the private sector, which has been the catalyst to solve some of the biggest challenges in the world, to be honest. And yes, from time to time, it needs government intervention, government stimulus, but government stimulus generally is there to support private enterprise to come up with the ideas and the solutions to the problem. And generally the organisations I'm involved in, they do exactly that. They seize the nettle and grasp it and really take stock and take charge of trying to create that solution that really does create that social impact in investable proposition. So for us, I think more people from the private sector, probably many of the people who are listening into this webinar, really need to throw their shoulders back, puff their chest out a bit more, and understand that they are the catalysts of creating shared value. Members of the private sector, if we don't step out of our comfort zone, take confidence in the skills that we've got and take those steps forward, then nobody else is going to win. Nobody. We are the catalyst of value, and I think we should hold ourselves in a little bit more higher esteem.
I couldn't agree more with you. I think when before Richard and I started Cornerstone Place, we were looking at just doing some, fairly straightforward commercial conversion projects. But Richard's background, as you know, he's had 10, 12 years in the social sector. And he was instrumental in kind of driving this adjustment of how we were looking at projects and really trying to transport some of the private sector structures and mentality and the approach to analysing deals, but applying it to the social sector and to have impact. And as we're starting to make great progress. One of the things you mentioned there was around, one of the critical elements of it, of course, is funding. And as you've mentioned, you've raised millions of pounds for your projects, for your development projects. But you're involved. You've set up the SaaS Alliance, and I know that some of your members within the SaaS Alliance are interested in this sector as well. So would you mind just explaining a little bit about what a SaaS pension is, what the SaaS Alliance is, and then some of the feedback that you've had from some of the people that you've been speaking to about it?
Yeah, that'd be a pleasure. So one of my commitments to myself and my family when I left corporate life was I wanted to take control of my entire personal economy. And I was 45 at the time, 5 years ago. And the big one for me that I had to get my head around was, how do I take control of my pensions at the age of 45? And in 2015, that was the stage when that 25% tax-free at 55 came in. So a lot of things were changing there. So I'd spent, I suppose, 25 years in the SaaS wilderness before that, working in corporate life, didn't know what a SaaS was. I changed that around very rapidly, did my due diligence. I don't suffer from procrastination at all, but equally, I don't take flying risks. I'm pretty conservative. So I got a SaaS late 2015, early 2016. Nigel and myself and our respective wives are the 4 trustees. But what I also wanted to do was, the 35-year itch I wanted to scratch was write a book. So I wrote a book based on the due diligence I did. And I'm not qualified to give advice. I should say that, I'm not an IFA, I'm not qualified in this area. I'm just an honest guy who's prepared to share his views. But I'm also sensible enough to understand that I don't know everything. And one of the best ways of moving forward is to surround yourself with great people. And together, that we're greater than the sum of the parts. So I established SaaS Alliance about over 3 years ago now.
Okay.
And we're now 3,500 to 4,000 members on the Facebook group, and we just released our new membership platform as well, so we can better structure and help people. And that's created a wonderful community. Now, I don't want everybody getting dewy-eyed about SaaS pensions. I actually kind of want them to get through the emotion of it very quickly and then get into the nitty-gritty reality. That's where I spend my life. We make our money on structuring, on detail, not on blind emotion and hope. And so establishing SaaS Alliance has come with a great level of responsibility in terms of making sure that the sharks and the barracudas that quite often circle around the get rich quick and want to grab money quick type schemes. So I can't begin to tell you how many times I've been asked for people, can you fund this, or posts that I've had to decline because they're just straightforward asking for money, where people aren't aware of the due diligence and the requirements and the governance that is required. So it comes with a great level of responsibility. So we move relatively slowly in an assured manner moving forward. And there is a lot of funds available there. A lot of people are being helped and supported with their investment strategies. And their eyes wide open to not only great opportunities, but also the challenges in embracing those opportunities. Because it's not easy. We're just about to release our SaaS Alliance survey for 2020. 2019 was showing that there was an average of 357,000 of funds per SaaS trustee. Now, interestingly, I expect that to fall. It'll be interesting to see whether it does.
Why do you think it will fall?
Well, because we're talking about an average, and because there is an increase in the number of SaaS trustees, it's now becoming open to more people. More people are becoming aware, and it's not just for the high net worths. So, a SaaS is a small self-administered pension. it's for any trustees from 1 to 11, minimum of 1. You need to have a business. It's called a director's pension informally for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic opportunity for those that are equipped and capable of managing the responsibility and accountability that comes with it. And this is your pension you're dealing with. Now, for some people, that responsibility, it's all in context with your personal circumstances. So what type of personal circumstances? Well, context of your wealth. I know some people who have got a SAS or decided a SAS isn't right for them. Their pension is all they've got to live on in future life, or later in life. That's all they have. So their propensity to risk is going to be very different to somebody who, quite frankly, they're sorted and their pension is more their longer term, multi-generational.
Maybe they've got property or they've got other assets that are generating income alongside the pension.
Yeah. So should your pension be diversified is a great question to ask. Well, the question is, it depends. It depends, because your pension is part of the context of your overall wealth. So look, I'm very risk averse. I'm conservative. I want to make sure things are done right and due diligence right. So yeah, you won't find me giving it the high fives. It's about the granular detail here. And I get as much pleasure out of somebody dropping me a note saying, thanks, Mark, for your support. Really appreciate that. But I've decided a SAS isn't right for me. Because I don't gain anything personally out of somebody getting a SAS or not. Yeah. The purpose of SAS Alliance is to equip people with the freedom of choice.
And just, I know you've had conversations with SAS trustees, with people who've got their own SAS, about some of the projects we're doing in Cornerstone Place, directly having an impact in this sector and directly helping, people come off the streets. What do you feel is the propensity or the interest level of some of the people you've chatted with to maybe, to have a part of their SAS which is invested, they want a return, obviously, but invested in having an impact?
Really high. The interest is high, but overall, I would say people don't know how to do it. They're not sure on the structure. But if you look at the demographic of people within, say, SAS Alliance, and I think that's a very good litmus for SAS trustees as a whole in this country. So there's probably around about 22 to 25,000 SAS trustees or SASs as an example. So 20, 30, 40,000 SAS trustees individually probably. So a relatively small area. But the research that we've done, the demographic profile is late 30s to 60, 40s and 50s. That would be the 80-20 rule. And what the feedback I get, and this just personally, the feedback I get is that they're generally people who have got a few quid in their SAS. They're making decisions and stepped out of traditional life, so they've decided that they can make those decisions. They want that self-improvement and evolution to take control of their personal economy. Because of their age, they have probably got children.
Yep.
And they've probably got maybe grandchildren as well. So they're starting to think longer range horizons and their investment strategies. So because they're businessmen and women, and the split incidentally on men and women is pretty consistent. It's 75% male, 25% female. So we want to address that imbalance. So please, everybody, let's get a fair representation of society there. So because that does affect that risk debate as well. I've found. So look, I don't know whether that directly answers your question, but when people have got longer range forecasts, longer range investment strategies, It is about an economic return, absolutely, and economic return, security, they're going to be paramount. But there's also something else. If you can do that and create social impact, create that shared value as well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lack of understanding of where they can gain that investment knowledge, and that's something that we're doing in SAS Alliance to really broaden the reach there, increase the awareness. And as you say, you know, Cornerstone plays and many other organisations who have got a similar ethos are able to project that to a community that is just ready and waiting for that type of investment proposition.
It's heartwarming to know, actually, isn't it? You know, it's not just about the ones and the zeros and or the numbers on the spreadsheet. You know, 'cause I've been fortunate enough to be at some of your SAS events when we were able to meet properly, and you know, I've met with people. I've explained what we do as Cornerstone Place, and it's pretty universal, actually. Everyone says, I want to help. You know, what do I need to do? Tell me where I can help, and you know, because they understand that there are the principles there in terms of the security of the investment, the return, but also you're very strong and hot on sort of sharing the experience of the investment with the people that you work with as well, aren't you? You know, in terms of the return on intellect and the return on involvement, and it's just great to hear. And I think as more as we do more as Cornerstone Place, and as we sort of spread our message to the community, and obviously with your involvement, I'm sure there'll be projects that are having an impact that maybe people can sort of talk to you about in due course as well, Mark. And,
yeah, and you know, I wear multiple hats here, and I can look through a different type of lens from different scenarios, because I'm a property investor, I'm a business investor, and as well as helping people raise substantial funds, you know, I recognise that the challenges in this area, you know, the funding gap, the private capital gap, the banks aren't stepping up to, and I would argue, nor should they, to get to those 100% loan to cost levels. You know, I think the banks keep developers honest, and I think that's really important.
yeah.
But unless you've got that your own liquidity, then there is a funding gap, and that's where people approach me really to help and support.
And that's the only way to get scale, isn't it? Sorry, but that's the only way really to get scale and therefore have as much impact, because you know, as individuals, we have a finite amount of cash each, but as a collective, you know, you can pool resources effectively, and you know, obviously in a compliant fashion, but then increase the level of impact and that you can have on the sector.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a bit earlier that you're risk averse and you're very, very careful in terms of how you proceed, and certainly that's been my experience of working with you, Mark. You know, it's a very deliberate process. And one of the phrases I hear you use quite often when we're trying to look at a challenge or look at a property or a project, is you talk about walking a mile in someone's shoes. What does that mean for you? I mean, I think I know what it means, but what's the importance of that for you, and how does that shape your decision making?
Well, it's, yeah, I do use that phrase quite a lot. It was a bit of advice given to me by one of my first managing directors many years ago, back in 1993 or 1994. You know, I've been involved in a lot of negotiations, a lot of contract negotiations, and you know, to be honest, you know, a property. What is a property? Well, it's a contract, you know, and you know, it forms part of that web of the contract activity to bring something to bear. So in negotiation, you have to listen. And I was born with one mouth and two ears for a reason. And to actually understand how you can create shared value, you need to walk that mile in all the stakeholders' shoes, because the way you create scale and momentum and inertia is to make sure that there's something in it for everybody. I want my designers to make a return. I want the contractor to make a return. I want the bank to make a return, because they'll all be there to support the second deal and the third and the fourth.
I noticed you didn't mention the lawyers there, Mark. Lawyers always make their return, don't they?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, I cut across you there.
And that's a great example, because walking that mile in somebody else's shoes means understanding what their business model is.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. Commercial agents. Commercial agents, quite frankly, they don't make anything until the deal's done.
Yeah.
So the way we approach that would be to look at how we can create a union with them and look at long-term horizons, because most developers miss the point that they don't pay a commercial agent anything. The vendor is their client, not the developer, unless they're on some kind of retainer mechanism. So our approach would be working with them to say, well, okay, if it's a commercial to residential scheme, for instance, they won't get a fee from us on the development, they'll be conflicted, but we'll want a party who can sell the residential units at the end. We deal a lot with mixed use schemes. We hold a lot of commercial stock in limited companies or in our SaaS. Well, we want a party who can not only help us find the building, secure it, sell any at the end, put long-term full repair and insure leases or IRIs on the property. We also, if we're doing ASTs, we want that managed as well. We want, if we get any voids, we want new rebasing of leases and things. So it's understanding, and we had one conversation with an agent, and I know many people listening to this will be involved in property, where they were thinking about, how do I make a few £1,000s? Well, we acquired, in our SaaS, we acquired 5 commercial properties and also enabled 3 residential properties. And when you looked at the fees that would be generated over the next 25 years, because I can think that way because of long-term horizon with our SaaS, we're talking over £100,000 of fees. Now that's pretty attractive, and that's just on one deal. So that walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, understand their model, understand what gets them out of bed. There's an old management, in corporate life, you maybe had an away day, in group hugs, and there's an exercise, a game called the Ugly Orange. And the Ugly Orange, you separate into 2 teams. And this is a spoiler alert, so because I'm going to tell you the end, but both businesses are competing for the shortage of oranges in the world. And the net outcome is, what happens is you both compete for them. There is huge scarcity. You drive the price up and both businesses go bust. Nobody can win in that scenario. But when you do the debrief at the end, it turned out that if one business has asked the other, what do they actually want the oranges for? One wanted the pith and one wanted the juice. Okay. So quite often we find ourselves competing. And some of the best collaborations and unions I've created over the years have been what on the face of it would have been competing businesses. But actually, you can create greater than the sum of the parts if you look carefully.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's just about taking a different perspective, taking a step to the side and just thinking, what's it, and asking the right questions, of course, isn't it? That's part of the challenge. Sometimes we can be so blinkered in trying to reach the goal that we've set ourselves that we must miss stuff that's left on the table.
I think they make a really good point there, asking those open questions, but really asking those questions wanting to know the answer, not asking a question and then thinking what the next question is you're going to ask, really wanting it. And I think that comes down to one of the most important attributes I find in business, and that's humility. Yeah. If you've got humility, not arrogance, for sure, have the confidence, but you remain humble, which means you're always looking for those slight improvements all the time. You're always prepared to embrace somebody. And if anybody on this call wants to drop me a line, and they might think, well, I do the same as what Mark do, we're competition. Not at all. Not at all. I've just got off a call with somebody who, if I told you who it was, you would say, crikey, absolute competitor in the development space. Not at all. The world's a big place. There's lots of opportunity, and maybe together we could create some shared value where everybody wins. And I love that.
We've spoken quite a bit about potentially, people who've been quite successful in their lives, and they've got a pension, they've got SaaS, they've got a few areas of income. But what about for people who are maybe relatively new to property, but have a strong interest in this sector? I know, for example, online networking with the SaaS Alliance and so on has been great for you, Mark. And I think I first came across you and first met you at your the event you used to run at Mercedes-Benz World several years ago. But for somebody who maybe hasn't got the resources behind them and is new to the sector, what sort of advice might you have for them?
Yeah, it's I always like to find out about the person, the individual. And networking events are great. I've run them for many years myself, but nothing beats getting to know somebody. What really makes them tick. What I don't like is putting your thumb in my chest, pinning a business card to me and giving me the 30-second elevator pitch. That doesn't work for me. I've got to be honest, I turn off at that. Yeah. To see that person then bounce around the room, and it works for some people. In the investment world, people want to get to know, it's indentured relationships, it's building a pipeline, it's making sure that you're, and if you're putting the crosshairs on somebody's forehead, going to speak to them thinking, are they good for a few quid? You might be missing the opportunity of, if you and I have a relationship, we'd have never found out about this sector and our commonly aligned interests. So I like that one-to-one engagement. And yes, I'm not going to get a fistful of business cards out of one evening. I don't do that. I don't take business cards. I would much rather focus, rather than going out trying to find people, I would like to give freely and openly, and more create the draw. Create the open hand is the tightest grip, if you like. If somebody wants to contact me, doesn't matter who they are, I'll spend some time with them. And that's why, people can reach out and book a quick call or whatever. It's a great way.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Last question, I think, Mark, because I want to try and keep this clip to sort of 45 minutes if possible. You're obviously a successful guy, but you keep yourself very busy. What drives you? What's it's not putting tea on the table. It's something else, I'm sure. What is it that gets you out of bed in the morning and gives you the impetus to keep pushing things forward?
Yeah, that's a question my wife asks me quite a lot as well. But I am highly driven. I just love doing what I do, and I think that's the first point. I only do what I enjoy. If I don't enjoy it, then for sure there are times and things you have to do that you'd rather not. So I understand that. But look, my family are everything to me. 4 kids. I just love seeing their growth. I love being able to maybe influence some of the thoughts they might have, but also that fine balance of I want them to have that freedom of choice, not to be a reincarnation of dad's thoughts. So I really enjoy that. I really enjoy supporting young entrepreneurship and helping others. I've had a very successful career. I enjoy working with people, creating the connection, and collaboration works so well for me. I really do enjoy it. I'm humble. I haven't got all the skills that I need, and therefore, working well with people who I connect with. I don't swear very often, but my philosophy on a no wankers culture.
Yeah.
I have a very low tolerance of people who maybe don't have the alignment of values, and so you must have passed that test, David.
Well, yeah, it seems that way. Yeah, that's good to know. Okay, Mark, I'm going to open up.
Both ways, course, as well, so.
Sure. We're going to ask for questions in a minute, but just before we do that, well, if people want to, get more involved with some of the stuff that you're doing or connect with you more, what's the best way of reaching you?
Yeah, so they can go to Cornerstone Place website, SAS Alliance website, or Equa Academy website. But the easiest way is to either drop me an email at mark.stokes@equasas.co.uk or Facebook message me.
Perfect. Great. So, are there any questions from anyone listening at all? Give it a few moments.
Well, they're maybe asking the questions. One of my passions over the last few years has been writing books, and you kindly put those up earlier on. But I think that's I describe being in corporate life. It can skew you who you want to be, and I found when I left corporate life, I had that energy and freedom and mental bandwidth to be able to put my head to scratching the 35-year itch, of wanting to become an author. Now, that's a passion for me, and that's what I do, early mornings or late at night.
Yeah.
But just that departure from corporate life, taking control of my personal economy, it allowed me to then allow that to surface, and other people's passions will be something different. But mine was ultra endurance sports and book writing. They were my passion.
You didn't go out and buy a Harley Davidson and join a band or something like that?
No, I didn't. I couldn't grow my hair long if I tried.
Great. Well, we don't seem to have any questions, so I just want to say thank you very much, Mark, for your time this morning and for sharing your experiences and your wisdom. And if people want to connect up with Mark, you can find him through the Property for Good Facebook group and also the SAS Alliance group as well. Just want to let you know a little bit about the next event. I'm really pleased that I can have that Sian Clark and Andrew Powell have agreed to be our next guest. Sian has a background originally in nursing, but she's been involved in property in one way or another since 2003. And over the last 3 or 4 years, is full-time in property. But Sian's created a very clear niche and a very impactful niche in that she's providing housing for ex-servicemen and women. And she's working in collaboration with Andrew Powell, who you can see he's 16 years in military service, as well as plenty of time in business. But he's very focused on providing the wraparound services that are needed alongside the property. So it's in some ways it's a similar sort of approach to what we're taking in Cornerstone Place. We're providing the properties and the funding and so on, and then the charities provide the services. This is exactly the same sort of scenario, but focused more on veterans. And I think it should be I'm sure it'll be a really interesting conversation. And from my point of view, in terms of bringing guests to the event, we started the first one with the chief executive of charity. Mark's obviously coming from a very much more sort of business focus perspective, and now with Sian and Andrew, we'll have a couple of people who are actually operating in the sector from a property perspective. So it's a nice sort of variety of guests, I think, and hopefully you'll get value from it. In terms of being able to expand your knowledge in the sector and being able to have more impact yourself. So please put it in your diary, Friday the 24th of July, 9:30 a.m. And as I mentioned, it'll be the second and fourth Friday of every month going forward. And if you've got any comments, please let me know. Please keep inviting people into the Property for Good group. We want to try and build it as fast as we can. And yeah, thank you very much for your time this morning. Bye for now.
Thanks, David.
Cheers. Bye-bye.